Brian. Certainly, safety, passenger safety, and security has been a big focus for the last 3 or 4 years of the agency. And I think we've made remarkable progress as measured by some of the metrics and statements. Would you like to Lynn?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for paying a lot of attention to that and your comments on safety versus services. As one on the board, that when I came on the board, I insisted upon putting uniformed police officers with arrest authorities on the trains to reduce the incidents. And I want to say that I compliment TriMet's police force and the addition of additional police officers in reducing that, because the perception of safety was so important. TriMet was on the papers almost every day, and I know coming from the east side, people were saying we're not riding TriMet anymore, and they got upset. Had you discussed this though, there was a concern, and I raised this, we don't want to, or TriMet I'm sure does not want to appear as a police state either. And as we were merging forward, there's known areas where crime is higher than others. And I think the concentration in those areas, maybe we can look at reducing in the future and not have that appearance of, police officers all over the place. So had you talked about that? Because we don't want to appear as TriMet's running some kind of police state on although, again, I'll repeat, I come in here saying put police officers on. But I think they've done a great job. In the 2 years I've been on this board, it's been reduced. We're not in the news every day out there now as to the incidents. So.
I think there was a discussion, I can't remember if it was this year or a prior year, about that balancing concern of too many officers feeling sort of, over-policed versus the safety concerns that are legitimate for the riders. And I think all of us feel that, safety is more of a priority than the other perception. And so at this point in time, statistically speaking, TriMet has done an excellent job over the last year or so in notching up the officers that are visible in the system, and I think we feel that is appropriate, and the perception of it being over-policed is I don't think is coming through at this point in time.
Okay. So. And just to comment, and Paul, I think the city watched too many of the Rice-A-Roni commercials leaning to the streetcar. If they had to have one of their own streetcars, so it's a Rice-A-Roni.
But those are cable cars.
All right, I'll forget it. I thought I just
we count on Lynn for a few.
throw it out.
But those are cable cars.
Oh, those are kept on. Those are cable cars.
Okay. Any legitimate questions?
Your idea of collaboration with businesses for the stops, I'm intrigued by that. Has that been done in other places? I know Streetcar does that already, but I'm curious. That could be a great opportunity, I would think, as long as there are parameters. Is that just an idea that you all came up with, or is it something you...
I'm not sure if it's going on elsewhere. I drew that idea off a specific stop that's in front of one of my buildings, and it's always been difficult. And I thought, if I had been more informed ahead of time, that I would have gladly participated in lighting or some other format to sort of discourage people who aren't riding the bus from gathering there. And so I haven't really looked into seeing if that's done elsewhere, but I would assume it would be.
Too.
Yeah.
The point that Brian's really making on behalf of the CAC is, can you look at some of the capital investments that are there? I think that's a very good recommendation. Be aware, though, that on the operating side, we actually do have partnerships with local businesses that are near a stop to be able to help clean. We provide the gloves, the trash bags, and various other things as a way to try to be able to keep it clean and organized, and thereby discourage some of the problems. We oftentimes will provide tickets along with that bus cost or max tickets as well. But the recommendation to CAC is really take that next step towards the actual capital side, and I think it's a great idea we ought to explore.
I agree. As a property owner myself, I would share what you just mentioned with stops around your property. I feel the same way, so good recommendation.
I'm Brian and the whole committee, and this subject has come up many times over the last 6 months. I know you guys talked about the outside expert, safety expert that has been perform audit, was hired to perform an audit and then has been hired on an as-needed basis for select incidents. Did you guys discuss at all this whole topic of a citizens advisory committee?
Not safety.
We did walk through that a little bit, primarily after the fatality occurred. And I think we came to the conclusion that we didn't necessarily feel that that was an appropriate thing to have occur, that having actual safety experts on as an advisory after each incident made more sense, or even ahead of time, but to have citizens involved didn't seem appropriate to us.
Would that be something that, it feels like that's something, because that seems to be the sentiment of most of the board, but it feels like it would be a very appropriate and useful thing for you guys to add in a paragraph to this report.
Yes.
Because we've been talking about it, we've been alluding to the fact that you guys were going to come and report to us on this in April, and there have been other visitors to our meetings who I think would benefit from being able to read that in the report. So I don't know how to go about amending it, but just to say exactly what you just said in writing and add it to the report, I think would be very helpful.
Good thought, because I suspect that will come up again as well, so.
Okay.
I would just add that we sort of came to that conclusion after the event occurred. We raised some questions about it. We were inundated with diagrams and all kinds of context to allow us to evaluate it, even though we really didn't have time to do it. It seemed compelling at the moment. And it was so complex. We quickly realized that not only did we not have time, but even if we had time, it would be beyond the expertise of the members of this committee. There's just so much
And I think that's
technical is the
detail.
word, yeah.
And I think that's the exact nugget of the point that we've been trying to make, and I think it would be helpful to have somebody outside our group say the same thing, that without the expertise and the real knowledge of how to analyze those kinds of incidents, you, like we, are a little bit handicapped. And
I think adding that component of updates on sort of changes in your system, it would be appropriate to include in the advisory committee potentially. So in other words, TriMet is moving forward in this direction to aid with some of these things. Not just as an informational piece. I think coming into sort of the CAC seemed somewhat appropriate.
We did see the 2008 report on pedestrian and things like this safety. And that had been provided to us, I believe, before the fatality occurred. So we were aware that there had been a wholesale assessment and a prioritization resulting from that of future enhancements and updates to the stations.
And I don't remember that report specifically, but I don't recall it specifically talking about the issue of a committee, the Citizen Advisory Committee. I think that's what I and other people are in agreement,
come
or
up
it's
numerous times.
come up, and your opinion that a Citizen Advisory Committee is not the most effective way to analyze and deal with these incidents. That's what I'm looking for, is some statement on that issue.
I mean, to add and dovetail, I think that basically, without it saying here, and number one, when we came in and said, here are the areas that we want to look at, we wanted to look at security and policing, we really were zeroing in on, fares and the economics, and when we were briefed on it, the safety issue didn't rise like cream and all that, but it was a key thing that we did discuss. And a citizen advisory committee to safety was discussed, and we as CAC for Budget and Finance basically said that we were comfortable, and none of us collectively want to see these type of things happen, but we were comfortable with how TriMet was handling it by bringing in an outside safety consultant board to review these issues and incidences, and felt comfortable with what TriMet was doing presently versus bringing in a citizen advisory committee to look at specific issues.